Imagine for a second that everything you are, everything you could be, is sitting right there inside you, but you've locked the door and thrown away the key. That is what it feels like to live without self-confidence. You could have the mind of a genius, the heart of a poet, but if you are too afraid to speak, too afraid to fail, too afraid to simply take up space, you will spend your life watching from the sidelines while the world passes you by. If you have ever felt invisible, if you have ever felt like your voice doesn't matter, do not click away. This story was made for you. There was once a young man who lived in a small house by the edge of a busy town. His father ran a small business selling grains and spices, and his younger brother was loud, popular, and seemed to make friends wherever he went. But this young man, the elder son, was different. He spoke softly, he kept his head down. When people looked at him, he would feel his throat close up. He could barely utter a word. The neighbors whispered that he was slow. The local shopkeepers took advantage of him because he never had the courage to ask for the right price. His father would watch him with frustration burning in his eyes. "Why can't you be more like your brother?" he would say. "Why do you shrink away from everything?" Those words cut deep. They planted a seed of shame that grew roots into every part of his life. When he sat down to study, his mind would go blank. He knew the answers, he had read the books, but the moment he picked up a pen, fear would wrap itself around his hand and squeeze until he forgot everything. He failed his exams, he fell behind, and eventually his father pulled him out of school and put him to work in the shop, hoping that hard labor would beat some sense into him. But the shop became a new kind of prison. Every customer he tried to serve, he would stumble over his words. Every transaction felt like a test he was failing. His father watched and shook his head. One afternoon, while his father was out, 3 men walked into the shop. They smiled warmly. "Your father sent us," they said. "He told us to pick up the entire stock of rice and lentils for a big order in the next town." The young man felt a twist in his stomach. Something felt wrong. He wanted to ask for proof. He wanted to say, "Wait here until my father returns," but the words got stuck. His throat closed, and before he knew it, the men had loaded every single sack onto their cart and disappeared. When his father returned and saw the empty shop, his face turned dark red with rage. "You useless boy," he screamed. "You have thrown away everything I built with my own hands. Get out, leave this house, and never come back." The young man did not argue. He did not defend himself. He just turned and walked away, carrying the weight of those words like stones in his chest. He walked until the town disappeared behind him. He walked until he reached the river. The water was dark and quiet, and for a moment it looked like peace. He stepped closer to the edge. "There is no point," he thought. "I will never be anything. I will never be enough." But just as he leaned forward, a hand grabbed his arm and pulled him back so hard that he fell onto the grass. An old man with white hair and kind eyes stood over him. "What are you doing?" the young man shouted, tears streaming down his face. "My life is nothing. I am nothing. Let me go." The old man sat down beside him and spoke softly. "Child, if you end your life today, you will never know who you could have become. You will never meet the person hiding inside you. Come with me. Give me 3 days. Do exactly as I say, and if you still feel the same way, I will not stop you." The young man had no hope left, but he had nothing to lose either. He followed the old man to a small hut by the trees. The next morning, the old man gave him the first task. "Today, you will speak to 10 strangers. You will ask them their names, where they come from, and you will listen." The young man felt his stomach drop. "I cannot do that," he whispered. "I cannot even look people in the eye." The old man just smiled and said, "Then you have already failed, and you have 2 more days to prove yourself wrong." So the young man went into the market. His hands were shaking. His voice was barely a whisper. But he approached one person, then another. Some ignored him. Some looked at him strangely. But by the end of the day, he had spoken to 10 people. He had even made 2 of them laugh. That night, for the first time in years, he felt something small and warm glowing inside his chest. On the second day, the old man said, "Today you will teach 5 children why they should drink clean water." The young man almost laughed. "I never finished school," he said. "I cannot teach anyone anything." The old man said, "You know more than you think. Just share what you have learned from living." So he stood in front of 5 small faces staring up at him. His voice cracked at first, but then he talked about how water gives energy, how it keeps you from getting sick, how his own mother used to boil water every morning to keep them safe. The children listened. They asked questions, and when he finished, they clapped. He walked home that evening with his head held a little higher. On the 3rd day, the old man gave him the final task. "Now you must go back to your father and apologize." The young man froze. "No, he will never forgive me. He will throw me out again." The old man looked at him steadily and said, "If you cannot face your greatest fear, then everything we have done these past 2 days was for nothing." So the young man went. He walked back to the shop where his father stood behind the counter. His father looked up, and for a moment the young man saw the anger rise again. But before his father could speak, the young man stepped forward and said, "I am sorry. I have been so afraid of failing you that I never learned how to try. Give me a chance to prove that I can be someone you are proud of." His father stared. The silence stretched. And then, slowly, his father nodded. The young man returned to the old man one last time. "I did it," he said. "Now please tell me the secret." The old man laughed gently. "You already know it. The enemy was never your shyness. It was your fear. And you have spent 3 days proving that fear is a liar. Confidence is not something you are born with. It is something you build, one small step at a time." The young man bowed low, gratitude filling his eyes. "I understand now." And he did. Years passed. That same young man became one of the most successful merchants in the region, not because he was the smartest, not because he had connections, but because he had learned to believe in himself. And when people asked him how he changed so completely, he would tell them about an old man by the river who taught him that courage is not the absence of fear. It is deciding that your dreams are louder than your doubts. If this story stirred something inside you, if it reminded you that you are capable of more than you know, then do not keep it to yourself. Hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and leave a comment telling me what fear you are ready to face. I will be back with another story to lift your spirit. Until then, stay patient, stay brave, and keep believing in the person you are becoming.